lived in Madrid for about 6 months a couple of years ago, and I moved there to sort of understand a bit more about the culture of flamenco and Spain, because it was a really, really driving force in my inspiration for a long time. I guess the music that I write is quite genreless. I mean, it is and it isn't. I guess a lot of music, particularly for people from this country, in this day and age, there's so many influences coming from all over the world. So everyone's music's quite integrated with many different sounds and styles, but I'm finding it quite difficult to exactly put my finger on what style is my music. I guess it's quite cinematic, it's quite lush, it's I guess you have to say world music influence, but that's such a broad term that you can't really sort of narrow that down either.
As we went along, it started ambitious and then went upwards from there. So once Sam Boone got involved and started writing, you know, his orchestral arrangements were so beautiful that we just had to do that stuff, and then we had to work out how to do that stuff and how to slot it in. And
the next thing I knew, I was running into Sam out one night, telling him that I'd put down these songs. I was really excited just about how they were sounding, and I really heard in my mind like a bigger scale ensemble. And the next thing I knew, Sam and I were starting to demo up some arrangements for some orchestra parts. Well, I tried and I tried.
Yeah, well, I'd known Mimi for a little while, and she said she was working on some original stuff, and I'd just sort of been doing a bit of my own like chamber writing and a few new originals, and she was talking about maybe putting some strings or other orchestral parts on some of the tracks, and had a look and had a listen. I was really inspired as soon as I heard it.
It took a while to sort of gather the right musicians, and got Nathan Slater on board, he's a very integral part of the musical side of the songwriting and just the sort of the vibe of the ensemble. And we rehearsed and got in the studio and sort of booked the 3 days of tracking and kind of knocked that on the head pretty quickly, I thought, and they all wound up coming across really well, because the level of musician that I was lucky enough to have in the studio was just so amazing.
As far as I knew about Mimi, she did a lot of gigs, especially a lot of cover gigs and jazz gigs and that, but she told me that she had all this original music, she'd recorded it, and it hadn't quite, you know, it didn't turn out how she wanted it. And I thought, you know, she's such a great singer and really vivacious performer, so I thought that, you know, really she should get that stuff out. And, you know, at the time, I really had no idea how it was going to turn out at all.
I told him that I'd had these tunes, my original songs, which have always been a big part of my life to write music, and he was saying, well, we should just demo them up. And then one night he just towed the hard line with me and said, "You've got 2 weeks to give me all your dodgy recordings and we'll get in the studio after that." We've had to start re-rehearsing the music to condense it down to a live situation, which has been fairly challenging, because after so many months in the studio, that big scale, luscious sound has been in my mind for so long that transferring that onto stage is like virtually impossible. But what we're now doing is just containing the music to a 1, 2, 3, 4-piece band. So obviously the songs have had to be modified. Nathan plays a huge role because he's having to be sort of so many members of the band as the guitarist, and we've got a bass player, drum kit, 2 backing vocals. The planning, the next step, all that stuff has taken a long time, and I think by virtue of not having planned it, we've able to achieve this. If I'd have gone into this knowing what was going to happen, I probably would have run a mile in the other direction. But we've managed to do it now and not rip each other's heads off. maybe once we've done that. And I'm just extremely proud of the product that we've created.